What's the story, Morning Glory? What is the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for this. Hopefully, I'm going to try to make it as quick as possible conversation regarding some of the interesting topics that I came across. Online. So the first thing that I wanted to talk about, because I want to talk about two serious cases first, and then we'll go into the entertainment stuff. But the first thing that I wanted to talk about was this very crazy situation in Detroit, Michigan, where it involved a psychiatric children's hospital worker by the name of Brandon Woodruff. He's a 32-year-old African-American young man, and he worked as part of the staff of this children's psychiatric hospital. Now, as I'm telling this story, there's going to be some words that I'm not going to be able to say because this particular app that we're on is extremely sensitive with certain words. So I am going to hopefully give enough description so you'll know what I'm talking about. So we all know that lately, like within the past couple of years or so, there has been a lot of incidences where someone will go into an establishment where there's a whole lot of people gathered, and they will have a weapon that they will use to harm a whole bunch of people at one time. And we all know what that situation is, technically called. Usually they'll refer to it as a mass or they'll say there was an active person on the premises hurting people or threatening to hurt people with a device that can cause a whole lot of harm. So Brandon Woodruff, he said that he was asked by his supervisors first of all, he was told by his supervisors that they were going to be conducting a drill to see how the hospital would react if they were ever in a situation like this, where a very bad person comes on the premises with a device that can hurt a whole bunch of people at one time. So they told him that they were going to be having a drill, and they wanted him to play the part of this very dangerous person. And at first, he was kind of reluctant about doing that, but then he went ahead and he gave in. And so he had his device in his hand, and it wasn't one that you can hold with one hand. It was the type that you needed two hands to hold. And so he arrives on the premises of the hospital that he works at. Now, this is a children's psychiatric hospital. So there's children there who are very fragile, mentally, maybe even physically fragile. And he shows up with this device in his hand. And the funny thing is, or not the funny thing, but the questionable thing is that the supervisors who informed him of this drill did not inform anybody else. So nobody knew that this drill was going to be taking place. So he shows up with this device in his hand, and he enters the premises, and he's walking up and down the halls, pointing this device at everybody. And people were scared out of their mind. The children were frightened, and people were running down the hall, calling 911. They were calling their loved ones, letting them know that this might be the last time that they ever speak. People were doing all they could to protect the children who were patients at this facility. The children were even told that if the adults were harmed to the point where they couldn't protect them, that the children had to fend for themselves. They had to find a way to escape on their own. It was complete mayhem and panic. So he's walking through the hallways with this device in his hand, and he didn't understand exactly why everybody was in such a panic, because he thought everybody was forewarned about this drill that was going to be taking place that day. So he said that it was absolutely tragic to see people crying, screaming, running, the look on the children's faces, people calling 911. So eventually the police arrive, and they single him out. They're able to single him out, and he's told to come outside, lay on the ground with your arms and legs spread out, etc. He had on an Apple Watch. And so when the police or trying to detain him, he had called his wife on his Apple Watch because he thought he was, that this was going to be the end of him as well. He calls his wife on his Apple Watch so that she can be witness to what was going on in case anything happened to him. So they end up arresting him, but then he ends up telling them, "Hey, look, I don't know what's going on here, but that's not what I am. I am not that. I was pretending to be that because I was told by my supervisors that we were going to be having a drill." So they get all of that cleared out. He gets his name cleared, and now him, along with other staff members and family members and patients, they have now filed a lawsuit against the hospital, the Department of Human Services, and the state of Michigan for this mass confusion. So I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe this story. The things that you read about in the news is absolutely bizarre. But yeah, he was told to play this part. He had a fake device. It wasn't a real one. It was a fake one. He's walking up and down the hallways, pointing this thing at people. People are running for their lives, screaming. He said that he even passed by not a lobby, but like a waiting room type of area where people had barricaded the room. And he was like, what is going on here? Because he had no idea that nobody else knew that this was all just a drill. It wasn't real. And all I can think of is that he's lucky that this happened in Michigan and not in a state like Texas where people are allowed to, to carry, because if anybody was carrying at that moment when he was going through this hospital with this device pointed at everybody, he would have met his demise that day for no reason. And this story just absolutely blew my mind. But I have a lot to talk about, so we're going to move on to another serious story before we get to the fun stuff. We're going to move on to another serious story. So there is a Republican councilman by the name of Matthew R. Reilly, 41 years old. He is a councilman for the city of Rhode Island. Well, he was caught on police body cam, passed out in his car, behind the wheel in the driver's seat, completely passed out with a crack pipe in his hand. When the cops saw his ID, they realized that he was a city councilman, and they were like, no way. There's no way this is one of our local politicians in this car passed out with a crack pipe in his hand with residue in the pipe. So once he came to, I guess once they were able to wake him up, he said that he was going through a very difficult divorce, and he tried to persuade the cops just to let him go. And he said that he had sleep apnea. I guess he was trying to say that, he was sleeping. He's got this serious case of sleep apnea where he just, falls asleep at the drop of a dime, and he wasn't like, passed out or high or anything. But yeah, no, the police couldn't just let him go because, the evidence was there. And so they had to arrest him. And now he has a court date coming up June the 15th. Now let's get into the fun stuff. Now, MichaelJFox, beloved actor, one of America's sweethearts because he doesn't get into any trouble. He's always played roles that were very, very likable. A lot of us knew MichaelJFox from the very popular television sitcom Wait, what was it called? It wasn't Family Matters. It was I can't believe I forgot the name of that show, but it'll come to me. From that television show, that's where, I first knew of MichaelJFox, and of course with the very popular Back to the Future franchise. We all know that right now he is suffering from is it multiple sclerosis, and it has a pretty serious, Parkinson's disease. He has Parkinson's disease, a very serious case of Parkinson's disease. And of course, as he's gotten older, his condition has gotten worse. But the sweetest thing about this is that he's still funny. He's still extremely likable. We see him, from time to time, we'll see him on social media or on television. He'll make an appearance somewhere, or he'll be interviewed, and he is still funny. It's like he's still the same lovable MichaelJFox that he's always been. And he tries to make light of his situation. He doesn't really want, he doesn't want pity. He doesn't want people to feel sorry for him. What was the name of that show? It wasn't, I feel like the word, Family ties. Yes, family ties. I'm so sorry. Family ties. And so he was on The View, and Whoopi Goldberg had asked him if there were any roles that he had regretted turning down. And Michael J. Fox says, well, there was a chance that I had to work with you, Whoopi. He was asked to star in the movie Ghost. He was asked to star in the movie Ghost, and he was going to be playing the part that ended up going to Patrick Swayze, but he turned it down, and he said that he really regretted that. And I was thinking to myself, as much of a great actor that Michael J. Fox is, and as much as we love him and adore him, I feel like that role was meant for Patrick Swayze. I can't imagine anybody else playing that role. But that was just an interesting fun fact that I wanted to pass along, that he was actually initially going to star in the role of the Patrick Swayze character, but the role ended up going to Patrick Swayze. So I thought that was really interesting. Moving on from there, let's talk about some court cases. We all know about Tiger Woods, and him and his girlfriend broke up, and she decided to file a lawsuit against Tiger Woods and his trust. That's owners. The trust that he has owns his mansion. The mansion is owned by this trust. So her and Tiger Woods were in a long-term relationship, living together in one of his mansions in Florida. Well, the relationship ended in 2022, and because they were not married and they did not have children together, she did not want to leave this relationship empty-handed. You've been with a multi-millionaire. I don't even know if he's a billionaire, but you live with a multi-millionaire for as long as you've lived with him, hoping that y'all are going to create this life together that was going to go on happily ever after. I'm pretty sure she wanted to get married, and maybe she wanted to have children. And after so many years, the relationship is over. And the way that he broke up with her was, it was kind of, it wasn't the best. He sends her on vacation, and then when she wants to come back home, they tell her, yeah, you're not welcome back to the mansion. You're going to have to find other accommodations. He won't let her come back to the mansion and change the locks, all of that. So the way he broke up with her was, terrible. And so she's probably extremely bitter. And she filed a lawsuit because she's like, I'm not going to leave this relationship empty-handed. And of course, he's not going to hand over money to her. And there's no divorce, so there's no divorce settlement. And there's no children, so there's no support of any kind. So she decides to file a lawsuit accusing him of evicting her from her home, wrongful eviction, because she claims that when her and Tiger Woods first met, there was an agreement between the two of them that she was supposed to live in this mansion for like 10 or 11 years. When they broke up last year, they were about 5 or 6 years into their relationship. So she claims that she has another 5 or 6 years left in her tenancy in that particular mansion. So she says that he owes her for the rest of her tenancy there, because she says that if she has to go live somewhere else, she has to live in a home that is similar to the Tiger Woods mansion. She just can't live anywhere. She's not going to get an apartment. She's not going to get like a regular sized home. She says that she's used to a certain level. She's used to a certain lifestyle. And so Tiger Woods is responsible to make sure that she maintains that lifestyle. So she needs money and she needs enough money that's going to allow her to live in a home similar to that mansion. So that's why she sued him for $30 million. She also says that he had assaulted her in various ways, and she's also seeking damages for that. She wanted the non-disclosure agreement that she signed with Tiger Woods because she did sign an NDA at the beginning of their relationship that certain things would not be talked about in public at all, period. She claims that the NDA should be declared by a court. It should be declared null and void, because when you are a victim of sexual abuse or sexual harassment, that automatically nullifies the NDA. And so then you are allowed to talk about the things that occurred in your relationship, because she wants to booster her case, to make her case as strong as possible, and to, I guess, put the fear in Tiger Woods that, well, instead of us having to go to court and publicizing, all of our dirty laundry, let me go ahead and just cut you off, a couple of mil to make you go away. But Tiger Woods, he's like 10 toes down as far as I'm not giving you a dime. So she followed her action with the court to have the NDA declared null and void. Well, the judge finally made a ruling this week, and the judge ordered that the NDA will still stand. It is still in full force and effect. They're not going to void it out or nullify it or make any exception to the NDA. The judge had said that if her allegations of sexual harassment and sexual abuse, if she had enough proof that she was victimized in that way, the judge would have considered, because the exception to an NDA is that you were a victim of sexual abuse or sexual harassment. But she didn't have enough evidence to show that she was a victim of sexual abuse or sexual harassment. So therefore, there's nothing that can void the NDA. It still stands in full force and effect. So if she has any type of grievances against Tiger Woods or the trust, she has to take it up in a private arbitration, which she did not want to do because she wants to publicly embarrass, humiliate, shame Tiger Woods to the point where he's going to give her money to make her go away. That's what she was hoping. That's what I think she was hoping. She wanted to threaten him with, I'm going to expose you. I'm going to expose all of your secrets so that he can give her some money. But the judge says, no, the NDA still stands. And you're going to have to go through with it through arbitration, private arbitration, which means that whatever is discussed and whatever agreement is reached in arbitration, I'm pretty sure it's going to be sealed. The public will never know about it. Also, the judge had said, because she also tried to argue that she did not sign the NDA. And because she told the judge, well, I'm not sure if I signed that particular NDA or if they tricked me and I signed one thing and Tiger Woods signed something else. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Well, the judge said, well, if you're not sure, then you can't claim that you didn't sign it because you might have signed it. So you have to be sure on whether or not you signed it or not. And because she wasn't definite on that, that was no longer an issue. So Tiger Woods won, and it looks like everything is still going to be kept under wraps. So now he has no fear of anything being exposed to the public. Moving on to Priscilla Presley. So we all know that Priscilla Presley, after her daughter Lisa Marie Presley passed away, the estate of Lisa Marie was handled by her daughter, her oldest daughter, Reilly Keogh, or Reilly Co. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. So her oldest daughter was the executor of the estate. And according to the estate, Priscilla Presley was written out of Lisa Marie's will. So she got absolutely nothing from her daughter's estate. She inherited zero, nothing. So Priscilla Presley sued the estate. She claims it wasn't a lawsuit. She says that she was forcing Reilly to have a discussion on how to fairly distribute the assets in the estate. Priscilla Presley says, I wasn't trying to sue my granddaughter, or I wasn't trying to sue my daughter's estate. I was just trying to gently encourage her to have a discussion with me in a court of law, I guess. So because Priscilla Presley wasn't going to go away and she wasn't going to let this go, they came to a settlement. So her and Reilly and the estate of Lisa Marie Presley came to a settlement. I don't know exactly how much Priscilla Presley got, but one of the things that they negotiated was whether or not Priscilla Presley would be able to be buried in Graceland next to Elvis and her daughter Lisa Marie and her grandson Benjamin Keogh. So whatever they negotiated, it turned out that she was not going to be buried. They would not allow her to be buried in Graceland. So that's the one thing that she had to give up, I guess, to get whatever money she was seeking. And I'm just thinking to myself, what is going on with this family? That number one, Lisa Marie would write her mother out of the will. Number two, the daughter was not willing to give Priscilla Presley anything at all until Priscilla Presley took her to court. And number three, that in order for her to get any of the money, she had to give up being buried in Graceland. Like, what is really going on with this family? It was very bizarre to me. Moving on to the most well-known baby daddy out there, one of the most well-known baby daddies out there, Nick Cannon. So Nick Cannon has a whole bunch of kids. He has 11 kids from 6 different women, which means that he's got 6 different families to support. In order to properly take care of his children, Nick Cannon has to make at least $100 million a year. I'm pretty sure that is not a problem for him. Nick Cannon is one of those middle of the road type of hosts. For whatever reason, various shows love Nick Cannon. Nick Cannon is a little bit problematic because I think he had said some very anti-Semitic? I think he had made some very anti-Semitic comments about a year ago or so. And for whatever reason, luckily, they never canceled him out. He did not get canceled. And the reason why I say luckily is because he's got a whole bunch of children to feed. So that kind of just slid off his back. So he goes off, he has all these kids, and he gets a lot of criticism for having so many children with so many different women. And I'm pretty sure he can properly afford to take care of these children. I don't think money or finances is an issue for Nick Cannon because for whatever reason, he's very employable. He's a host is he a host on America's Got Talent? I don't even know. Whatever shows he hosts, I don't watch them. He's got Wild 'N Out. I think there's America's Got Talent. And some other stuff, a whole bunch of other stuff. He has a whole bunch of hosting gigs. And I think he's going to be taking over the hosting gig for Shazam, which is the musical game show that Jamie Foxx was hosting, and his daughter was the DJ on that show. But because of Jamie Foxx's medical issues, that hosting gig has been given to Nick Cannon. He's just, I don't know, I don't understand. He's just so likable to the point where it is so easy for him to get these hosting gigs. So he can make the money. He can take care of his children financially. The only issue is, can he be present in these children's lives the way that he needs to be? Obviously, he cannot be with any of these children like on a day-to-day basis. He's going to be spreading himself extremely thin. I don't know how many different states these children live in, but with all of these hosting gigs that he has, because his career is very lucrative, and it's lucrative because he stays booked and busy. So with him having to maintain his career, to maintain his income, how is he going to maintain being an active daddy to all of these children as they're growing up? I don't know. Not my problem, not my kids, but I'm just wondering, yes, Nick, we know you can afford to take care of them comfortably, but can you actually be there for them? Or are they going to grow up and tell stories about how they had an absent dad, a dad that never came around, a dad that came around rarely? What's going on here? Moving on. Let's talk about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. So, was it today or yesterday? I'm not sure, but within the last day or so, this story came out that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle were being chased down by the paparazzi. And the report was that it was a very dangerous, chaotic, high-speed chase. And they were likening it to the chase that his mother, Princess Diana, was in when she ended up, fatally, the fatal crash, because the paparazzis were chasing her and her boyfriend at the time. I forgot his name. And her boyfriend at the time, and through a parking garage. And so people are now saying that this chase was not high speed. It was not chaotic. It was not frantic the way that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made it out to be. And people are saying that they're just trying to compare themselves to Princess Diana, I guess, to make people, to be more favorable in front of the public, because I don't think that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are the most likable couple. They're very polarizing. I think either people really love them or they really hate them, but they're not well loved and well received by the world, for example, Princess Diana was. So I guess they're trying to fight for public acceptance or something. And so they came up with this story that they were being chased down the streets of New York City, and like their lives were in danger because the paparazzi was after them. So they were at some event. And from what I read, I don't know if this is how correct this is, but they were at some event and they had promised the paparazzi or the media or the press that after this event, they were going to have an opportunity to take photos of them. But when the event was over, they sneaked out. They didn't want to do the photo. They sneaked out. And so the paparazzi started chasing them. Now, people are saying there's no way you can have a high speed chase in the middle of New York City because of the congestion of the traffic. The construction, the pedestrians, it's absolutely impossible to have a high speed chase. They probably were followed. They probably were even chased, but it wasn't high speed and nobody's life was in danger. And so whatever car they were in ended up parking, I guess, like at a police station. And then they went into a taxi. And the taxi driver was interviewed later on, and the taxi driver said that yes, they were definitely following us, but it wasn't a high speed chase and it wasn't like dangerous and people's lives were in danger. It was nothing like that. So I'm just trying to understand, like, why are Meghan Markle and Prince Harry claiming that they were involved in this crazy, dangerous, high speed chase with the paparazzi? I'm not understanding that. That was quite interesting. Moving on. So New York City's, this is along the lines of New York City. ABC7, I guess, is a very popular television station up there in New York. And there's a very well-known actor by the name of Ken Rosado. He's an anchor for ABC7. And he was fired after being with the station for almost 20 years. He was fired because he had called his black co-anchor a very derogatory name. Now, initially, the reports were that he had called her a racial slur. But it wasn't the N-word, but he had called her some type of racial slur. Then the reports came out that it was not a racial slur. He had called her a derogatory name for sure, but it was the C word. He called her the C word, and it was on a hot mic. He didn't know that his mic was on or whatever, so it was caught on a hot mic. And supposedly him and this co-anchor, I didn't write down her name, but supposedly him and his co-anchor, at least on camera, they appear that they get along, that they have a very friendly relationship. They've been working together for years, almost 2 decades. And so they give this impression that they get along and that they're friends. So it was very shocking to hear that he had called her this really awful, ugly name. So ABC7 has terminated him. They stripped him of his social media that has ABC7 attached to his name. So if he's like on Twitter or Instagram and you see his name with the logo or with the station's name, all of that has been deleted. His own personal and private social media, I guess, is still up. But I'm thinking to myself, this man lost his 20-something year career, or almost 20-year career, over one word. Over one word. Career gone. People, you got to be careful out there. You have to be super duper careful with what we say, because the times right now, man, you can be canceled, fired. They'll make you go away. They'll make you disappear in a heartbeat when you say the wrong thing. Be very, very careful with your words. Moving on. So recently I had done a video on Jimmy Allen, the country music sensation who was a rising star and married, children, pregnant wife, all of that. And he was being sued by a former manager of his who was accusing him of sexual harassment, sexual assault, false imprisonment, a plethora of things. And so Variety had done this huge expose on this particular case. And she's referred to as Jane Doe. Jane Doe, she absolutely went through hell being this person's manager, if what she's alleging is true. We don't know. A court of law will determine that. She went through absolute hell if these allegations are true, because the things that he was doing to her was absolutely horrible, disgusting, awful. So Once this expose was released or printed out there, Jimmy Allen now has issued a public apology to his estranged wife because his wife has filed for divorce while she was still pregnant, but she has since had the baby. I think she had a baby boy, which is their third child together. He issued a public apology to his wife and also to his 3 children. He says that he fell victim to the temptations of the music industry. He has been suspended from his current label, BBC Music Group. The booking agency, United Talent Agency, has also paused their relationship with Jimmy Allen. Full Coverage Communications, which is a publicity firm that represented him, they've also terminated their relationship with him. And yeah, so he's out there in limbo with this very serious lawsuit looming over him. This Jane Doe has filed a lawsuit against him, accusing him of sexual battery, assault, false imprisonment, sex trafficking, and emotional distress. She's also sued Wide Open Music, which is the record label that he was signed to, I think. She's also suing them as well because they said that they had basically facilitated an environment where they allowed this country singer, Jimmy Allen, to, violate her and groom her and do all these horrible things to her, that they knew that he was like this and did nothing to stop it, did nothing to protect her, did nothing to prevent it until it was way too late. So he's issued a public apology, and his defense is that whatever they did was consensual. When he apologized to his wife, he was apologizing for having an affair on her, for having an extramarital affair. He claims that him and Jane Doe were in a consensual relationship, that she wanted the relationship to continue with him indefinitely. She thought that he was going to leave his wife to be with her. And when none of that happened, that's when she decided to be vengeful and file a lawsuit against him. So his defense is that she's a scorned lover. She's just mad because I wouldn't be with her. And that's why she's accusing me of all of these things. Now, Variety magazine, they claim that they have substantiated a lot of what she's alleging, that Jane Doe has proof, documentation, text messages, witnesses that can corroborate all of the things that she's accusing Jimmy Allen of doing. So according to Variety, she probably has a very strong case against him. But he's issued this apology, I guess, to try to clean up his image, but I think it's a little bit too late. Jimmy Allen, once this lawsuit is done with, whether it goes to trial or whether they settle out of court, whether it's going to stay criminal. Well, I don't think he's charged criminal. I think he's charged civilly. Whatever the outcome is, even if he wins the lawsuit, no matter what the outcome is, Jimmy Allen is a has-been. I don't think he's going to recover from this. I don't think he's going to recover at all from this. And last but not least, Frasier, one of my favorite shows of all time. So Frasier ended back in 2004. That's when it ended. And supposedly there's going to be a Frasier reboot. Okay? Frasier held the spot for winning the most primetime Emmy Awards, 37, until they were dethroned by Game of Thrones in 2016. So it's one of a very critically acclaimed, popular amongst the people, a very popular show, very well-loved show. I watch a lot of Frasier reruns. I know a lot of people who love Frasier. It's a really good show. But it ended in 2004. But supposedly they're going to do a reboot. And I think it's been confirmed that they're definitely doing the reboot because this article talked about all the actors that are going to be coming back. It talked about when the first episode may air. They're looking at October 1st, 2023 as the date for the first episode to air. The first episode might be set in Boston. Now, we all know Frasier is a spinoff of Cheers, and Cheers was set in Boston. It was about a bar and all its, bar patrons in the city of Boston. Frasier was one of those bar patrons. So, Frasier was a spinoff of Cheers. And so the first episode may actually be set in Boston. I don't know if the entire reboot will be set in Boston, but the article that I read said that the first episode is going to be set in Boston. It has been confirmed that it is coming back. And the actors that are definitely coming back: Bebe Neuwirth, who played Lilith; Perry Gilpin, who played Roz; Jane Leaves, who played Daphne; and of course, Kelsey Grammer, who played Frasier. The article that I read stated that David Hyde Pierce, who played Niles, will not be returning to the reboot. And as we all know, John Mahoney, who played Martin Frasier and Niles's father, he passed away. So I just don't know if you can have a Frasier without Niles. I don't know. I don't like reboots. I don't like reboots at all. I don't like reboots. I like it better when we're left with the beautiful, sweet memories of whatever shows that we enjoyed. And just, I like the fact that we want them to come back. But I feel like we should keep them in nostalgia, because times were different back then when a lot of these shows that we love, that hold a special place in our hearts and in our memories, times were different back then. And I want to keep those lovable shows in a time when things were happier, sweeter, better. Because right now we're going through a lot as a country, as a society, the world as a whole. Because you got the stuff going on in all over the world. There's stuff happening. So the shows that I really love, that hold a special place in my heart, I want them to stay in the past. I want to remember them fondly, because I think reboots can get kind of ugly, especially if reboots are referencing all the stuff that's going on right now. I don't really like that. I don't like that. So I don't know if I would watch the reboot of Frasier. And like I said, I don't know if you can have Frasier without Niles. I don't know if you can do that. I'm not sure exactly why David Hyde Pierce may not be returning. If you can't have everybody, I don't think you should have anybody. That's how I feel. Let us remember the characters, the stories, the way that they were. That's how I feel. I don't know. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. On your way out, please do not forget to rate the video. If you like this content, go ahead and subscribe, and I'll definitely talk to you later. Bye.